to see you all here. This is my first time at CNP Coffee, and I hear this is a really special place. And it's exciting to see, especially all of the young people here. I'm glad you're here, because I write books for kids just like you, and for smart adults who realize that some of the best stories out there are the kids' books. So that's what I write for. And the kids that I write about they're like real kids, like you. They're curious and truth-seeking, and sometimes prank playing, a little bit mischief making, and they want to know more about who they are and where they belong in the world. And one of the places that they belong is with their families. And so I write about families too. And I write about the strong bonds that we have as families. No matter what the world says about whether we look like we should belong with one another or not. So whether we look like we are a family according to the world's standards or not, my stories talk about how we are a family, how we're all related ultimately, right? But in my stories, often the family members look different from one another, but they have a strong bond. I'm just curious, has anyone in the room had a chance to read Brendan? Are any of you familiar with it? We have a few people who have read Brendan. So for those of you who are not familiar with the story of Brendan Buckley's universe and everything in it, it's about Brendan, a very curious scientist kid. He's a scientist because he asks questions about everything. In fact, he has a notebook that he's labeled Brendan Buckley's Book of Big Questions about life, the universe, and everything in it. And Brendan is always writing questions in his notebook, things like, what's in a black hole anyway? And do boys fart more than girls? And how do they get the ripple in fudge ripple ice cream anyway? Things like that. Now, the one question he knows not to ask about is the whereabouts of his white grandparents, I should say. His black grandpa, he is biracial, like me. His dad is black and his mom is white. And right before the story begins, his black grandpa, who he's very close to, has died. And so Brendan has this hole in his life. He feels the lack of his grandpa, who is so close to. And so he's starting to get more curious about, what about this other guy? Where's my other grandpa? And how come I've never met him? And how come I can't ask about him? How come we don't talk about him in our family? Well, lo and behold, what do you think might happen at the beginning of the book to get the story really going? And if you know the answer, you can say. Does anyone have any ideas what might happen to really make the story intriguing? He meets his grandpa, who he's never met, and discovers that the man has lived only a few miles away his whole life, and he didn't know it. And so he built a secret friendship with his grandpa to try to find the truth. Remember I said my characters are truth seekers? He wants to find the truth of where his grandpa has been all these years and try to make some sense out of things. Now, Brendan is a rock hound. Like I said, he's a scientist, but this summer, the summer after his 5th grade year, he's decided he is going to start a rock collection. We have some rock lovers in here. Anyone with a rock collection? Yes, me too. I wanted to be a geologist in 6th grade. So I actually brought my rock and mineral collection, and maybe during intermission or afterwards, you feel free to take a look. My daughters are over there manning the table, and I've got all my minerals, including some thunder eggs, which is something that Brendan and his grandpa end up going searching for. So I give it away a little bit. He does end up kind of forming this friendship with his grandpa, and if you want to know more about how the story turns out, you can take a look at that book. My second book, and then I have a sequel to Brendan's 6th grade experiment. I wasn't planning on writing a sequel, but I would go to schools and talk to kids, and I would always hear, what happens next? Is there going to be another story? What's going to happen to Brendan and his grandpa, after this story is over? And so I kept getting that question so many times, I thought, well, maybe there is more of a story, and I decided to write a second one. And in this one, Brendan decides that, he finds out about a national science competition. And so he decides, he makes that his goal. He's going to win a national science competition. But he gets paired with the new girl in school. They're in middle school now. Brendan's moved on to middle school. And Morgan, the new girl in school, who he gets paired with, is also a science kid. And she really likes Brendan a lot. And Brendan is not so sure how he feels about Morgan. In fact, he thinks she might be getting in the way a little bit. He's got his science goals, right? And he's all about making alternative fuel in that book. So on the cover of the book, you'll see some 2 liters. That's not filled with root beer. It's actually cow manure. So he decides to take some cow manure, mix it with some water, and make some methane. He's all about alternative fuels. Brendan's really interested in saving the environment, kind of like me. And so that's kind of what that second book is about. His relationship with Morgan, with his best buddy Cal Fawny, and what's going to happen with their friendship because, Brendan's spending so much time with this girl and this science experiment. And then his dad. Brendan really wants the respect of his dad. His dad is kind of a down-to-earth, tough guy police cop who doesn't necessarily always get Brendan's, lofty scientific ideas and questions. And so it's about the father-son relationship there as well. So those are the Brendan books. And then I wrote one in between, because again, I didn't think there was going to be a sequel, called The Other Half of My Heart. And this story has kind of an interesting genesis. I was on my second book of a 2-book contract after Brendan. Brendan had done pretty well. And I had a second book all lined up that I pitched to my editor, and she said, no, I'm not going to buy that from you. I don't want that one. But I had a contract. So she said, I saw this story in the news recently about these twin girls who were born in Britain. And one came out looking African American, and the other one looks white. So we got a black sister and a white sister born to the same parents. What are their lives going to be like when they're, say, 11 or 12? Do you think you could write a story about that? And I was kind of a new writer, and of course, what am I going to say? Yes, I will do it. I will do it. So thus was born The Other Half of My Heart. And I thought, well, here I am, a mixed-race person who can kind of relate to being black and being white. I come from both. I've grown up in an interracial family. Who else could, if anyone could write it, I guess I could. So I tried to write this story. And actually, it's one of the stories, I think it's the story closest to my heart because it's about Minnie and Kira, twin sisters. Minnie is the shyer, quieter one. And Kira is the more outgoing, fiery one. And Minnie's ultimate desire is that nothing would come between her and her sister. They're close, and she doesn't want anything to come in the way of their relationship. Well, enter grandmother Johnson Pain in the Butt. Her name is Grandmother Johnson Pain, but they call her Johnson Pain in the Butt. And she's a very formal, old marm, kind of school teacher type, retired school teacher who tells them, hey girls, I want you to come down to North Carolina for the summer and compete in a pageant. And so Minnie, the shy, kind of retiring one, she gets forced into the limelight, and their relationship, her and Kira's relationship, really get put to the test while they're down south because their grandmother has a tendency to favor Minnie, who is the quieter, kind of responsible, good student, and happens to also be the fairer child, the lighter one. She favors her, and so it really puts their relationship under some strain when they go down to North Carolina. But if that sounds of interest to you, you can check out The Other Half of My Heart. What I want to read to you tonight from is actually none of those books. I thought maybe a few more of you would have been familiar because I know that Brendan's been around in the school district for a bit doing Battle of the Books and Global Reading Challenge and all that kind of thing. But you know what? I'm really excited tonight to be able to share a little bit of my newest book. Let me see if you can see this. I don't know if you can see the cover. It is actually not a book in book form yet. It's not printed. Can you see it? Uh-oh. They're trying to get me on the internet here. Poor Cleo getting her face all covered up. Okay, so you've already heard kind of what the book is about, but Cleo, Edison Oliver, Cleopatra, playground millionaire. I don't want to join. She is, as you heard, a 10-year-old future president of a company. She's a company president and CEO. And her goal is to run businesses. That's what she wants to do. She's also adopted, and so she's also a 5th grader, and it's in this year that she's starting to have some more interest in finding out more about where she comes from, who her birth family is. She's very interested in that. But she's got big plans, and in this first book, there's going to be at least 2, maybe more. She discovers a need at her school. She wants to start a business at her school, and she discovers a need, which is there's a lot of kids around with loose teeth who are scared to pull their teeth. And so anyone here have a loose tooth right now? Oh yeah, yep. See, when you get a bunch of kids together, there's always going to be some loose teeth. And Cleo realizes this is a money-making opportunity right here. Okay, so she decides she's going to find some, sort of quick and hopefully painless way to pull kids' teeth for a cut of their tooth-fairy money. So she's going to turn a profit with her tooth pulling Skills. So I'm just going to read you the chapter where she's brainstormed an idea. She's got this flash of inspiration, and she just needs a guinea pig, and it happens to be that her 6-year-old brother has a loose tooth. So he'll be the perfect guinea pig. So there's Cleo, there's Josh, who's 6 and in 1st grade. There's Julian, who's 4. He also goes by Jay or JJ. And then there's Buckley, their overweight black lab. And I guess that's all you really need to know. Josh and Jay also do happen to be adopted. So they're 3 adopted kids. They're all African American. Their parents are white. Again, so it's an interracial family, but this time through adoption. All right, chapter 9, Paratrooper Tooth. Josh, you've got to see this. Cleo bounded into the living room. JJ slid on the wood floor and crashed into her. Josh didn't take his eyes off his book. What? You'll see. She grabbed his arm. Let's just say it involves your Nerf gun and flying teeth. Josh's head snapped up. You never asked if you could use my Nerf gun. May I use your Nerf gun? Come on, you'll think this is so cool. Josh shut his book and stomped behind them through the kitchen. Everything all right? Mom asked, pulling a pan of lumpy cookies from the oven. Cookies that looked like they could choke a yak. Great, Cleo said, zipping past before Mom could ask if she wanted to try one. Did Mom realize customers liked lollipops, cupcakes, and cookies to taste good? You sure? Mom's eyes had a "what are you up to now" look in them. Cleo leaped up the stairs before she could ask more questions. Sure. As soon as they got to the boys' room, Cleo hit Josh with her sales pitch. She kept her voice low. You want your loose tooth out, right? He squinted one eye and looked at her warily, like a fish eyeing a shark. I don't know. Why? What if I told you you could have it out today, that you could get your quarters and gum this very night? His lips pooched out and the space between his eyebrows got all wrinkly. He thought she was trying to pull a fast one. I'm not trying to trick you, Josh. I'm letting you be my first customer. I'll even make this first time on the house. You're not supposed to go on the house anymore. Julian looked up from his plastic soldier battle. Mom said, on the house means for free, JJ. I'm going to let Josh be my first customer for free. She grinned. What do you mean, customer? Josh said. What's that got to do with my tooth? What's a customer? Julian asked. Oh man, JJ had so much to learn. A customer is someone who buys a product or a service from someone else, like the people who bought our avocados. She spoke to Josh again. In this case, you would be buying the service of me taking out your tooth, except I'm not going to charge you this time. Josh's eyes got huge. You? No way. Please, Josh, it'll be so fast you probably won't even feel it. He narrowed his eyes. You'll probably make it hurt on purpose. That stung, but she brushed it off. She had a business transaction to complete. Actually, I won't be doing it. Your Nerf gun will. Josh's forehead bunched again and his lips were all stitched up. What do you mean? Cleo held up the floss she'd nabbed from the bathroom. I'll take a piece of this, tie one end around the Nerf missile and the other end around your loose tooth. Then I pull the trigger and shazam! Your tooth is soaring through the air. Like a paratrooper? He said slowly. Just like a paratrooper, Cleo said. A smile spread across his face. She got another flash of inspiration. I'll be right back. Don't try to do it while I'm gone. She rushed out of the room. Mom talked on the phone downstairs. I wonder if we could work out a deal, Jean. I need cage-free eggs for my products. You have cage-free chickens. Miss Jean, perfect. Mom would be on the phone for a while. Miss Jean liked to talk. Cleo headed to the room at the end of the hall to find Dad's new tablet. Getting sent to her room for taking Mom's knife tickled the edges of her memory, but she swept the thought aside and kept on going. She found the tablet in its drawer. She stared at it. Should she? Her parents had made it absolutely clear that she was not to use it without permission. If only she'd realized the can of Pepsi had tipped over on the last one. Unfortunately, she'd been horsing around with JJ and left the tablet marinating in soda. She needed to record this momentous event. The opportunity to capture her tooth-pulling method on video might not come again for weeks or even months. And she would be careful. Super duper careful. No electronic devices would be harmed in the making of this film. She grabbed it and ran back to the boys' room, closing the door behind her. Julian was dropping plastic soldiers off the top bunk, making explosion sounds when they hit the ground. Buckley, yay, Buckley, he'd actually made it up the stairs, stood below, trying to catch them in mid-air. He snatched one in his mouth, lay down, and went to town on it. "No, Barkley!" Josh yanked the soldier from Barkley's stinky mouth and wiped the slobbery toy on his pants. "What are you doing with that?" He watched Cleo turn on the tablet. "Aren't you supposed to—" "I'm going to record your paratrooper tooth." His eyes lit up. "Cool, then I'll be able to watch it." You and a whole lot of other people, Cleo thought. Her marketing plan was taking shape even as she loaded her tooth-pulling instrument. Her extractor. No, her extractor extraordinaire, trademark. She tied a long piece of floss to the missile. Julian climbed down the ladder. "You gonna hurt Joshy?" She took the loose end of the floss. "No, I'm helping him, aren't I, Josh?" She smiled, thinking about all the dangly-toothed kids at New Heights Elementary. Josh suddenly looked unsure. Time to take charge. It was fortune principle number 4. Confidence inspires confidence. And right then, Cleo's young followers needed to believe that she knew what she was doing, even if she wasn't 100% sure herself. "It's going to be great. Think of the story that you can tell at school, and you won't have to go to sleep terrified you're going to swallow your tooth again." Josh nodded, but his eyebrows were still pulled together. Cleo forged ahead. She made a slip knot at the end of the floss, put it around Josh's tooth, and cinched it tight. "Is it going to hurt?" "It's going to hurt." Josh shook his head. "I don't want to. I changed my mind." He'd been a chicken about the other teeth, too. She handed him the extractor. "Here, you can even pull the trigger." She put the tablet in camera mode and held it up. "But," Josh protested. "I want to take a picture," Julian shouted. Barkley started barking. JJ jumped onto her arm, jostling the tablet. Cleo sucked in her breath as it slipped through her hands. She bobbled it a couple times, but grabbed it before it hit the ground. "Dummy, you almost made me drop it." JJ's bottom lip started to do its jello jigglers thing. His big brown eyes watered. Barkley was still barking. "Quiet, Barks." She didn't need Mom coming to investigate. "I'm sorry, JJ. I shouldn't have called you that. You can take a picture after me. Promise." She put her arm around him, feeling bad for making him cry. I just need you to watch for now, okay?" "Okay." He sat on his bed. Barkley sat on the floor with his chin on JJ's knee. "One brother down, one to go. Do this, Josh, and you'll be able to tell Emilio. He'll think it's super cool. I bet all the boys will think it's cool." He looked from the Nerf gun to the tablet and back to the Nerf gun. "Okay, I'll try it. Bingo." She pushed the record button. "Say hello to Joshua Myron Oliver, client of Cleo's Quick and Painless Tooth Removal Service." Josh stood there, staring like a dummy. "Wave to the viewers, please." Josh raised his hand, but his smile looked pasted on. Better than nothing. Cleo turned the camera on herself. "Here at Cleo's Quick and Painless Tooth Removal Service," an important rule of any advertisement was that it should repeat the name of the company at least 3 times, "we let the customer be in control." She put the camera back on Josh. "Whenever you're ready, Mr. Oliver, just pull the trigger." Barkley started barking again. "Barkley, quiet!" Josh shook his head. He was wimping out. "I don't want to," he said with his mouth open. Drool spilled over his lip. "Great, nothing like a little drool to win over the customers. Of course, we understand at Cleo's Quick and Painless Tooth Removal Service that not everyone is excited to say goodbye to their teeth." Cleo lunged for the Nerf gun. She wasn't sure who actually pulled the trigger. The missile rocketed toward the window. Josh screamed bloody murder and clutched his mouth. JJ jumped up and down, shrieking. Barkley barked like mad. Cleo ran to pick up the missile and held it out in front of the tablet. Dangling from the end of the floss was one beautiful baby tooth. Ka-ching. Josh rushed for his tooth. "Give that to me. That's worth money." She handed it to him, still attached to the missile. "Smile for the camera." He smiled for real this time, showing off a nice big gap where his top front tooth had been. "It worked," he shouted. She zoomed in on his mouth. "So, folks, as you can see, this is one satisfied customer." The doorknob turned. "Mom!" Cleo slung the tablet along the floor. It zipped across the carpet and disappeared under the bunk bed. "What in the world?" Mom said, stepping into the room. "What's going on in here?" My tooth came out! My tooth came out! We did it with my Nerf gun!" Josh held up the missile. The tooth swung on the floss. "Your Nerf gun?" Mom's jaw dropped. "We even got it on the first try," Cleo said, before Josh could finish, just in case he'd been about to say they'd recorded it on the tablet she didn't have permission to use. "Yeah, isn't that so cool, Mom?" He ran to Cleo and threw his arms around her. "Thanks, Cleo." Her heart suddenly felt all soft, like room temperature butter. "You're welcome." She squeezed back. Mom put her hand on Josh's head. "I guess Mr. Tooth Fairy will be making a visit to our house tonight." He nodded excitedly. "It's my turn to take a picture." JJ tugged on Cleo's arm. Mom looked at JJ, then at Cleo. The questioning look was back on her face. I told him he could use my camera." Julian kept tugging. "But Come on, JJ, let's go get it. She took his hand. She needed to get him out of here pronto before he spilled the beans. Mom asked to see the tooth. She held the missile, laughing. Cleo, how do you come up with this stuff? Cleo smiled. What could she say? She was inspired. With a little luck and some word of Josh's mouth advertising, she would be turning a profit in no time. That's the end of chapter 9. Thank you. So that's Cleopatra, Edison Oliver, and it will be coming out not until February. So sorry to have to make you wait so long, but I'm very excited. It will be coming out with Scholastic, who's a new publisher for me, and it's actually with Arthur A. Levine. So that's a really big honor for me. He is well known for bringing Harry Potter to America. He's the editor of Harry Potter. So so there's no magic in this book, but Cleo's going to work a magic of her own, a money magic. It's a pretty different book from Harry Potter, but hopefully you'll enjoy it if you get a chance to check it out. That's it from me. Do we have time for a question or two, or should we stop and we'll have...
Sure, maybe
if anyone has a question. Yes. Hi, Quincy. What's a Nerf gun? Good question. A Nerf gun. Okay, let me see if I can get this right, because I'm not the pro of Nerf guns, but I've done a little research. It's a small it's a gun that shoots foam missiles. So it's a toy. It's not going to hurt anyone. Is that a good description?
Yes.
It's foam missiles that you can shoot with your gun and just for fun to hit targets and things like that. Yeah.
How did it get out the tooth?
How did it get the tooth out? So she tied it to the missile, one end of the floss to the missile, and she tied the other end of the floss to his tooth. She loaded the gun, so maybe this may not be as clear as I wanted it to be. She loaded the gun, and then when he, or whoever did, because she lunged right at the gun, whoever shot the trigger, it made the missile shoot out, right, of the gun, and because the string was attached to his tooth, it took the tooth with the missile. Does that make sense? And this is an actual thing I've seen kids do. So I went on YouTube because I was looking for creative ways that kids pull their teeth. And all you gotta do is go on, YouTube is great for writers. I mean, you go on there, you type in kids pulling teeth, and you come up with 50 different ways. So, and I like the Nerf gun the best. So, yeah. Anyone else? Final question? All right, thanks for being here again. Wonderful to see you.
So tonight we have Leslie Sumida, the children's librarian from West Seattle Public Library, to share her favorite poem. And I think a lot of you have met her before, seen her around the stacks. And she has helped me find just the right books for my poetry class to share with my students or in my writing classes. And so for all you youngins, she's a great resource at the library in case you need to find just the right book. So welcome, Leslie. I'll leave the stage to you.
Okay, so the poem that I'm going to share with you today is called The Jabberwocky. It's by Lewis Carroll, who is the author of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Now, keep in mind that this is a nonsense poem, so it has a lot of made-up words, but don't let that worry you. Just sit back, relax, and listen to the tale of the Jabberwocky, because I'll bet you will understand the entire story if you just sit back and listen. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mom's wrath outgrave. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the juju bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal wave went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he came galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, frabjous day, calloo, callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mom's wrath outgrave. And that is the Jabberwock. So now, here's the part where I tell you why this poem is important to me. When I first came upon the Jabberwocky, I had never heard anything like it. Here was this poem filled with all these crazy made-up words like brillig and slithy toes and frumious bend or snatch. I'd never heard any of these words, but yet I understood exactly what was happening. Did you guys kind of get what was going on? Kind of got what was going on. Pretty straightforward story. Dad warns his son about a monster, but does the son listen? No! He goes on after it, right? And then he lies in wait for the monster. He sees it. He defeats the Jabberwocky with his sword. And then he brings the head, I'm sorry to say, back to his dad. There are better presents, by the way, to give your dad other than a head. This Sunday for Father's Day, maybe aftershave, maybe a tie. Not so much a head, I don't know. But here's the thing. The dad likes it. So this is obviously a very weird family. So, but what does this all mean to me? This poem taught me that poetry and words and language can actually be fun. It's not just a set of rules of things you must do in a certain way. You can play with words and the sounds of words, and don't worry about the definition or how and the grammar, but how the sound makes you feel. Like when I'm happy, I like to say, oh, kalu kale, because it just sounds so happy. So go forth, enjoy poetry for the sheer fun of it. Just play with words and sounds and make up words, and no heads for Father's Day this time.
Thank you for sticking around. I retired from teaching about 6 years ago, so this is the first time I've been in a room with this many people, all kind of looking at me. I kind of got out of that mode. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you were able to stay for the last reading, and that I'm going to do with my daughter. We're going to trade off on this. How are the acoustics? Can you hear me back there? It's okay? All right, good. And the mic seems to be on. Let me start by saying this. I once taught a class in children's literature at the U, and we started with picture books, and we wound up with Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea trilogy, and lots of in between. So I got really interested in the form, but I never written children's books. So there's a lot of them out there. It's a huge amount of books out there for children. But one of the things you're going to maybe discover one day is that there aren't many books with black children as the main characters. There aren't many at all. 3% of the books published have a black, protagonist or a person of color. And I always thought that was rather strange because, we want to have stories about all kinds of kids and people. What happened 3 years ago? I was in my study doing something, and my daughter comes in, and she says, "Why don't you want to do a children's book with me?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to. I'd love to do a children's book, but we got to have a story. What's the story going to be?" And she said, "Well, I want to work with the subject of bullying in the schools." And I said, "Well, okay, I can relate to that. Long ago, in the 50s, I think I had to deal with bullies. I'm pretty sure some of you have had to deal with bullies maybe in your lifetime, adults here as well as kids. So what do you do if you got a bully in your life from kindergarten?" And that's what we created. A story of, here's the other part. The other part is that while I'd love to do a story with my daughter, I've been thinking for 30 years about a character I wanted to write. I wanted a little black boy, who was a scientific genius, a child prodigy. He has an IQ like Einstein's, 188. And this kid gets into adventures, and they're funny. So I always wanted to write about a kid like that. So we put that together with a bully. And so this character here, Emery Jones, now he's in middle school here, but in the first book, Bending Time, he's in elementary school, he's got a bully bothering him, and that's his best friend, Gabby. Gabby wears a hearing aid. She has a hearing problem. She can't hear very well. So both of them are outsiders. He's an outsider because he's so smart, the other kids bully him, and she's an outsider because she has a hard time hearing sometimes. She wears a hearing aid. Now, he actually works with her hearing aid to soup it up. So she can hear 2 blocks away now. All she's got to do is turn it up right, because he's like a little child prodigy. So they help each other, they protect each other. And the first story and then the second story is about friendship, their friendship as a boy and a girl. Now, my daughter's gonna read. See, Gabby tells the story. She's like Watson to Sherlock Holmes. You never get in Emery's head because he's a genius, right? But Gabby she tells the whole story like Watson talks about Sherlock Holmes. So you get to hear a lot from Gabby. She's a character just equal to him, but she's the narrator of the story. So we're gonna read Gabby talking about the first time they met in elementary school.
Yeah. And you guys are probably all out of school, but this is, like he said, starting at the beginning of school. The first time I saw Emery Jones was last year when we were in the 4th grade. Most kids meet their best friends on the playground or quietly in class. Not me. What I remember is a big-headed boy, about 4'10", in a dark blue blazer wearing black sneakers, a striped tie, and tan trousers with cuffs, barreling down the hallway, shoving all the kids in the hallway aside.
Move!
He shouted, "They're after me."
That's my line.
Oops.
They're after me.
He had a camera and a notepad. Right behind him was the lunch lady, waving a frying pan, screaming, "Get him before he gets us all fired." He stepped right in front of me in the crowded hallway, breathing hard. The tail of his shirt was hanging outside of his trousers. One of his shoelaces was untied.
Help me!
He said,
I need somewhere to hide.
I had just opened my locker. "You can go in there, I guess." He squeezed inside, then pulled the door shut. I stood with my back pressed against the locker just as the lunch lady came barreling around the corner. "Where is he?" she said. "I know he came this way." I turned up my hearing aid. "Who?" "That skinny boy with the big glasses and all them crazy gadgets." I shrugged my shoulders. "I don't know, ma'am." I gave her my sweetest little girl look. Grown-ups always fell for that. The lunch lady huffed and puffed and said whoever that Emery was would be the ruin of Mom's Mabley Elementary School. Then she went galloping down the hallway, swearing she would first call her lawyer, then the school board, and finally the mayor if he didn't stop whatever he was going to do. Once she was gone, Emery stepped out of my locker, looking up and down the hallway to make sure he was in the clear. I asked him, "What was all that about?"
Yesterday, I saw something funny looking in that mystery meat they served us for lunch.
He flipped open his notebook to show me what he had written.
I decided to do my own investigation. I started testing things this morning and taking pictures. Right when I was testing the meat, in comes Lunch Lady Montgomery. She grabbed a pot, started waving it at me, and said, "Children can't be in the kitchen. I'm going to expose them. Look, I grabbed some meat to run tests on."
I looked down at a green-hued piece of hamburger patty in his palm. My stomach flipped. This kid was onto something. We could all get...
No, that's mine.
Oh, sorry.
We could all get sick if we eat this slop. I think you should bring your own food and bottled water from now on.
What are you going to do?
Send all the evidence I can gather to Principal Jackson. Maybe he can make conditions in the cafeteria better.
As he talked, his glasses kept sliding down his nose. He pushed them up with 2 fingers, and then he shook my hand.
Thanks for letting me use your locker. I'm Emery.
"Anytime," I said. "I'm Gabby." That was a year ago, and actually my name is Gwen, but everybody calls me Gabby because that's what I'm not. I don't talk much unless I have something really important to say, and what I want to say right now isn't about me at all. Well, not exactly. It's more about what happened to us and you this school year because of some bullies.
Now what happens is Emery invents a time machine. And it's basically a device. There was something in the world once called a chronovisor. And go on, Google it. Chronovisor. You'll find out that according to legend, the Vatican has one. And they can see into the past and into the future. Well, Emery builds a chronovisor so Gabby can look in the past to help her with her history lessons. Right? She can actually go back and look at dinosaurs. Well, the bully, when he brings it to school, grabs it and starts pushing buttons all over it. And next thing you know, he's sent right back to the Triassic period, all the way back to the prehistoric era. So Emery has this dilemma. The bully's gone. I'm glad, right? But I can't leave him there because the principal saw this happen and feels they got rid of Chippy Payne. That's his name, Chippy Payne. And so they have to go back in time to save Chippy. And Gabby has to help and blah, blah, blah. Well, they get back to the present day, and that's the end of the first story, Bending Time. Now, the second story is, you know how the chronovisor works, time machines work? You just can't get in a time machine and go anywhere you want. You have to build a time machine today, and then wait a year or 2 years or 3 years, and then you still got another time machine. You can put those in sync. It's like making a phone call, right? Between a receiver and a transmitter. So in the second story, or in the first story, when they go back in the past, they discover there's another chronovisor, and it was built by aliens. And Emery had built one so they could talk to each other. Well, in the second book, the aliens come because they realize the chronovisor has been activated. That's one problem, because they're going to conquer the Earth. The second problem is Emery has a robot. Every kid scientist has got to have a robot. His name's Caliban. And Caliban gets lonely because Emery is busy and can't play with him during the summer. And so he starts making his own robot friends. And they get more and more sophisticated. And finally, there's one called, what's his name? Omega. He's the last in the line of robots. And he wants to take over the world. So in the second book, there are two threats to the human species, both of which Gabby and Emery have to stop to save the world. You know, something somebody told me once, it was my agent. She said that the Emery Jones book is the first father-daughter collaboration by a black father and daughter. I think that may be true, unless you can actually think of one. I'm not sure. But there is no greater joy, I can assure you, than being able to work with your daughter. You know, I mean, I don't remember when she was born. You know, and then then she goes to art school, and now we can write stories together. And that's just, I can draw them too. That's perfect. So this is the first day of school in middle school now.
So they've gotten older, and very much Emery is a lot of my dad, and Gabby is very much a lot like me. So I was able to work out my own middle school angst a little bit in this book. But Gabby's having a terrible day. It's the first day of school. She wakes up. She's late. She can't find her hearing aid. Everything is going wrong. And so she finally meets up with Emery to walk to school, and he sees that there's something wrong, and so he asks her what's going on. 2 weeks ago, I kept getting stomach cramps, I said. My mom took me to the doctor. He said I was lactose intolerant. He took me off dairy products. My eyes started to sting. I wiped them with my fingertips. I can't eat cheese, and you know how I love different kinds of cheese. I can't have yogurt or custard, ice cream, or fruit tarts made of milk, no puddings, cheesy pizza, fettuccine alfredo, hot cocoa, butter, chips, dips, cakes, muffins, unless they're made with soy or rice. I can't eat cheesecake, cream sauces, or soups, no sherbets or milkshakes. I'm allergic to all of it. Maybe I'm just allergic to life, I sniffed. What did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? Why is everything special or unique about me bad? Emery listened, saying nothing for a long time as we stood on the sidewalk a block from school. Then he said,
Why not you?
Oh, thanks.
No, really. I grokked the problem.
Grok?
Yeah, that's a word from Robert A. Heinlein's science fiction novel, Stranger in a Strange Land. It means I understand you, and
He sighed.
The title captures how I feel sometimes. Don't get mad.
I'm not mad. You just don't seem to care.
But I do, and it's okay. My doctor took me off dairy products too.
Shut up.
Really? He did, a month ago. How long did your doctor say you couldn't eat dairy?
For the rest of my life.
That's what mine said too. But don't feel bad. We have great alternatives to dairy. We probably should avoid eating Italian or French food, but Chinese, Korean, and Japanese meals, usually made without dairy, taste good. We can be vegan. Fresh fruit and vegetables taste good.
No way are you allergic to dairy.
I am.
He sucked his teeth.
Do I look like I'm lying?
If he was Pinocchio, his nose would stretch across the street. Because he loved truth and science so much, he was a terrible liar. And he wouldn't much miss the things I, and now we, couldn't eat anymore, because for him, it was knowledge that was delicious. That was how Emery was. If I couldn't eat certain foods, he decided that he had to give them up right along with me. I gave him a hug. I wrote a poem last night. Want to read it?
Yeah, I'll swap you my new book for that poem.
Thanks. All I get when I sent off my poems and other people read them is dejection slips.
Don't you mean rejection slips?
No, I mean what I said. He had me feeling a little bit better by the time we got to Red Fox Middle School. Our first class was science, too, with Miss Judy McFarland on the first floor on the end of the hall. So they get to school, and Emery decides to meet her in class. And Gabby comes a little bit late, and there's a strange girl sitting next to him. And that
In
is
Gabby's seat.
this picture.
She's sitting in Gabby's seat because they always sit together. But she's new. Her name is Priya. And nobody's ever seen her before. And the reason is because she's an alien. That's a spoiler, okay? And what's her name? Gabby don't get along so well. She blows kisses at Emery, and over there they're getting ready to fight because she says something nasty about Gabby. What it is she wants to take Emery to her world. So he's got a dilemma. Do I leave my world here where I feel like a stranger in a strange land and go to the stars? You know, astronaut Ron McNair, who died in the Challenger, when he was in elementary school, he used to lay on the grass during recess and look up at the sky, and his teacher would say, "Ron, what are you looking at?" And he would say, "That's where I belong." He dreamed of going to the stars his whole life. Emery's like that. So he's got this dilemma. Does he go away with Priya, who is his first love? Remember that. This is the first time he falls in love. It's puppy love. And then later he's got to fight robots. But I'll let you.
So we're catching up where Gabby follows Priya to her spaceship, and that's where she finds out that she's an alien. And she runs back to find Emery at the library so she can tell him what's going on. He was in the place where he spent all his time, in the library, the science, technology, engineering, and math sections. He read every book on those subjects. He knew exactly where each title was on the shelves. I found him with his coat draped over the back of the chair, his sleeves rolled up as he hunched over the pages of a musty, illustrated book as big as a briefcase on his lap, turning its stiff pages. It was about marine biology. He could have read about them online, but he believed there was something special about the experience of a book, finely printed, bound, that each volume, delightful to hold in your hands, with its delicately drawn illustrations and quality paper, was a treasure in itself, like a work of art, and he loved losing himself in its smell, its weight, and the feel of each page as it turned. You couldn't do that with a Kindle or iPad. Sure, the electronic contents were the same, but carefully wrought bookwork developed so masterfully since Gutenberg's printing press was as deeply satisfying as the knowledge contained in it. When I plopped down beside him on a chair, I was still shaking. "We need to talk, now." He looked up from his book, sniffling.
Did you pee on yourself?
"We can talk about that later. Listen to me."
I know what you're going to say. The way Priya appears is a phantom, right? Just a mirage. It's like a masquerade.
Yes, she fooled all of us, even Mrs. McFarland. Doesn't that make you mad?
No, not especially.
Still looking down at his book, he shrugged.
I wonder sometimes if everything is an illusion. Do we really see the world the way it is? Have you ever seen before and after makeup photos of Hollywood celebrities? Our perceptions of people and things aren't always reliable. For example, we look overhead at stars that no longer exist, though it took their light all this time to reach us. Sunlight is 8 minutes old by the time we see it. We spontaneously blink our eyes every 5 seconds. We go offline. Our brains use those split seconds of blinking to power down. But we don't notice these tiny blackouts because our brain edits them away, creating the illusion of continuity like in a movie. This is why you never see your own eyes moving in a mirror. Basically, our visual system shuts down for between 2 and 4 hours during every waking day.
Stop it! I shouted so loud, the old spider-bellied librarian with the dull egg eyes shushed me with an angry look. I lowered my voice by half. Did you hear what I said? This is the first time you've had a crush on someone and you fell in love with an intergalactic jellyfish. He winced.
Don't rub it in.
I'm never going to let you forget this. He nodded again sheepishly.
Actually, she belongs to the family of mollusks. They can be divided into 5 classes, and in 3 of them, we find snails, slugs, clams, oysters, scallops, squids, and the octopus. Priya is about 1/3 squid and 2/3 slug.
How do you know all this?
When she gave me a hug, she slimed me.
He pointed to a dried pasty blotch on the front of his black sports coat.
No, it's brown. I ran a quick chemical analysis on this. I'm pretty sure that Priya and the crew evolved from what's called phylum, or mollusks. And Gabby, why are you looking at me like that? I know she's an alien.
There's more you don't know. As I told him what I'd heard and seen when I spied on Priya, Emery sat there listening like a lump of Play-Doh, his eyes slicking over. The situation was so complicated and confusing to him that he pulled a pen out of his sport coat, from his pocket one of the scraps of paper he was always clipping from newspapers and magazines to use for his note-taking. He was that serious about not wasting the Earth's resources. His brow a washboard of lines, he tried to quantify the problem on paper, with E being himself and P equaling Priya. For a moment or two, the only sound of the library was the fierce scratching of his pen. But even though computer code can express anything in zeros and ones, you can't reduce the mysterious workings of the heart to numbers. And so, after a moment, he gave up and put his hands in his head in his hands, suffering paralysis of analysis. Slowly, he closed his book and laughed bitterly.
I believe you. I took the bait. I was the fish on a hook. I was in love.
Priya's deception and his broken heart was, I figured, enough for him to swallow at the moment. I didn't tell him that sometimes I was telepathic. And that's where we're going to end.
Thank you for your patience. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Is it a graphic novel?
Is it a graphic novel? I'm sorry, what did you say?
Is it a graphic novel?
No, but it has 20 drawings in the second book and 10 in the first one. I had to do those 10 in the first one really fast because our artist bailed out on us. I had 18 days and nights to do the drawings in the first book, but I had more time for the second book. So there's lots of drawings, and I like that cover. That is classic 1950s sci-fi pulp magazine, right? And it's usually the guy coming in to save the girl. In this one, it's Gabby coming into Priya's spaceship to save Emery. So we have gender equality. So, no, it's not a graphic novel, but you got pictures you can look at to go along with the words. Oh, he's doing something, but it's with
Nothing.
food. So it's okay. No more questions? You're okay?
Is this your first reading together in the local area here?
We've done a couple readings, but this is our first reading with this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So-
sat outside when we got here in the car for 5 or 10 minutes of rehearsal. Before I brought the books, you brought the books
We're a
in.
little rusty. And we did a new format. He sprung it on me last night. Normally, I read the whole portion, and he was like, I'll read Emery's portion. So thanks for bearing with us when we tried to
That
do
was
it.
a real dry run. Believe me. Okay.
I have a question. Are you both equally interested in science, or which one of you is more the scientist among you?
Well, you know, I want a book for kids of color and kids all over, regardless of their color, to get them excited about science, technology, engineering, and math. And so that's Emery's big thing. But you know what? That's STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Some people want to see, STEM. Some people want to see STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So with Emery, you've got the science and technology and the engineering and math to the extreme. And Gabby is a poet. She's a writer, developing. So she's got the poetry, and she's his anchor in the world. When he starts to go off into blue sky thinking and, you know, all this stuff, she pulls him back. She says, shut up, right? And come back to reality, and he comes back. So they complement each other that way.
And I wanted a book. When I came to him and said, why don't you write a children's book with me, it was because my son had been born about 6 months before that. and I wanted a main character that he resembled him, that he could could look up to. Like, I remember books like The Secret Garden for me, or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and they were such great adventure stories, and but I also want to be able to see myself in them. There's something about that where you read all these things and you never see yourself. So like he said, anybody can enjoy these books just like I can enjoy all those other books, but we just wanted to also have a main character that resonated with
I forgot to mention,
kids that like
Emery's named after her son, who's my grandson, who's 3 years old. And he looks at that and he knows that's him. He knows that's him. He says, Emery Jones. He can't read yet, but he knows that's supposed to have some connection to him as a little kid. Yeah.
So in the first book, Gabby and Emery are in middle school, is that right?
elementary school, fifth grade.
All the schools are named after black comedians. What's the first one?
Mom's Mabley.
Mom's Mabley Elementary, and then the second one they're in Red Fox Middle School. And at the very end of the book, when the robots are going to defeat the humans, Emery tricks them, the robots into saying, let's have a soccer game. If you think you're superior, let's have a soccer game. So at Red Fox Middle School soccer field, the fate of the world is decided between middle school kids playing soccer with super advanced robots. And I won't tell you how that turns out. And then they're going to go to high school, in the third book, which we're still working on, just started working on, it's Richard Pryor High. Richard Pryor High School. So, no, I mean, kids' books are fun to do. I mean, you can have fun. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have to get permission to use their names? No.
They're public figures.
Yeah, I know.
No. We have a Ron McNair High School, I think, and we got schools named after people all over. Martin Luther King Jr., all over the place. So, no, you don't need permission.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
for being here.